Hey folks, this is Dr. K, and in this video we're going to talk about creating a hover drop-down menu. So I've already got a few things prepared in my document. This is just index.html file. I've already got the HTML here, and basically I've got a button and a list of links inside of a div that I'm calling menu container. Okay. This menu container is kind of important because it contains both the button and the div. In fact, it's important enough that the first thing I'm going to do here in the style section is I'm going to give it a border so we can see where it is at all times. Now, two things, or one thing I did also is I downloaded some Google fonts because I don't like to always be staring at Times Roman. So I downloaded Roboto, and that's what these fonts are here. All right, so first order of business, menu container. All right, that's class menu container. Am I in the right section? Why is it giving me a yellow line? Do not use empty rule sets. Oh, okay, I guess I have to put something in here. Okay, so I am. I'm going to put border. And I want to say I want a solid red border that's 3 pixels thick. And there it is. Okay, so now we can see where the menu container is at all the time. We can see where the buttons are. We can see where the list of items are. Okay, so let's take one at a time. Let's style the button first. Okay, we just styled the menu container. Okay, so now the button. I'm going to give this a background color of Dodger blue. Save it, and there it is. And notice as soon as I give this button a color, and it stops being a default button, it does something very irritating. It gives it a bevel. See how it's darker on the bottom and the right, and it's kind of lighter on the top and the left. That is a bevel type border, and that is the default border you get for buttons that have a color. You don't want that. Okay, that's, you know, unless you're making a website that's a throwback to the early 2000s or something like that. You do not want that. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to say the way to get rid of that is just to say border none. Okay. You can also say border is a solid color and give it a solid border. That's fine too. But you can see we gave it a border of none and got rid of that border, but it also really cramped up that, doesn't leave any spacing between the text and the rectangle. So we want to add padding to this now. Okay, and I'm going to add padding on the top of 0.5 EM, and I'm going to add padding on the sides of 1 EM, and that looks good to me. Only thing is that font could be a little bigger. I am going to make this font a little bit bigger. I'm going to, okay, I've got font family Roboto here. I'm going to say font size is going to be 1.25 rem, and if you actually do the calculation, a rem is usually 16 pixels or 16 something, and if you multiply that by 1.25, I think you get 20. So the font size is now 20, and you can see that's nice. I like that. I like it better. And so let's go ahead and style the actual list here, the list of links. All right. So my unordered list, I'm going to give this, I actually want these links to be kind of a light brown. I like working with burley wood. I don't know, it's probably just because of the name of that color. But I'm going to make this unordered list, the actual panel behind the links, I'm going to give it a darker color just because I'm going to eventually add some separation. I'm going to add some margin between those links, and I want the dark color to show through. So I'm going to give this a background color of saddle brown. And there it is, and those links look terrible on it because you can't see that purple on saddle brown. So let's jump right into styling the individual list items. First by giving them a background color of burley wood. And that did that. Now I realize here that I've got this padding here in my unordered list element, and I've also got these bullets, which I do not want. So to get rid of the bullets, I say list style equals none. And actually, this is something I would normally do in my global CSS file. But you can see that got rid of the bullets. And I want to get rid of the padding, so I'm just going to say padding 0 for everything in that unordered list element. And now I still got this annoying purple. You should not keep your links, the default. In general, you should try to avoid using defaults in general. So I don't like the blue links and the purple visited links. I'm just going to get rid of the underlines for all my links and change the color to black. So let's do that. So those are the anchor tags. Okay, that's given me that problem. So I want to say text decoration is none. That would get rid of the underlines. Boom, gone. And I want to say that the color, this will be the font color. The color is going to be black, but it's another personal kind of a pet peeve. I don't like solid black. I don't mind solid white on things, but I don't like solid black, so I'm just going to make it, I like it a little bit off. I'm just going to make it 111, and I like that better. I claim that I can tell the difference between this and black. I'm not really sure I can, but I like to think I can. Oh, and the categories, the black on the Dodger blue doesn't look that great, so I'm going to give the button, where's the button style? I'm going to give the button style a color of white. Okay. That looks good to me. That's shaping up. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little known CSS property, which is the plus operator, in order to put a little bit of margin between each of these list items. And that's really almost the only time you're going to use the plus operator, when you want some space between elements that are in some sort of list, okay, or some sort of sequential order. So let's do that. Let's put this near the LIs. Okay, here's the LIs. So this is going to be LI plus LI. And what this means is these are siblings. This is the older sibling. This is in sequential order. This is the older sibling. This is the younger sibling. Okay? So for all younger siblings, I want to put a little bit of top margin above the younger siblings. So here's the oldest sibling. This is the next sibling. This is the next sibling. This is the next sibling. Okay, so the oldest sibling is the only one that won't get the top margin. So all of these others are younger siblings of some other sibling. Okay, this is science fiction is a younger sibling of romance. Romance is a younger sibling of mystery, and so on and so forth. So watch what happens here. I'm just going to say margin top. If I can find it, margin, top equals 0.1 EM. Now, recently I've started using 0.1 instead of like 1 pixel. If I want something to be about 1 pixel, I started using 0.1 EM instead, like 2 pixels. I'll use 0.2 EM. Is just because I have an idea, and this also could be wrong, but I have a sense that the browsers render 0.1 EM better than they render 1 pixel. And I'm not going to try this out here, but if you want to try it out on your own, you can mess with it. But there you go. Okay, so I've saved this, and now I've got these margins of 0.1 EM. Between all of my elements. I don't have a margin on the top element. I don't have a margin underneath the bottom element. So this looks great to me. This is what I want my drop-down menu to look like. Okay, and one other thing before we start working on how to make this menu appear and disappear, I do want, when I hover over these list elements, I want them to change colors. So I'm going to make that a light gray. Just going to say li:hover. And then change the background color to light gray. Okay. And I should be able to tell if I do this. Yep. Changes to a light gray. I'm happy with that. Now let's talk about the crux of a hover dropdown, which is making the menu appear when you hover over the button. Okay. Now you might think that somehow you're going to write something that involves button:hover. But I'm not going to do that, even though I do want it to drop down when I hover over the button. I also want it to stay dropped down when I hover over the list. Okay, so whether I'm hovering over the button or the list, I want it to drop down. The easiest way to do that is just to say, okay, whenever you're hovering anywhere inside the menu container, make sure the list is showing. Okay, and then when you go outside the menu container, then the list can disappear again. All right, so let me do that. Let me go to the UL. The UL is the panel. That's the thing we want to drop down and disappear. And right now, this is right. We want to keep all of these properties here. List style none, padding none, background color. The only thing we really want to change is we want to change the display to none. Okay, and when we change the display of this to none, all of these properties will be part of this, but the list will disappear. It will not display. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and boom, the list disappeared. Okay, and you can see that the container shrunk also because it doesn't, there's no list for it to contain. It's not displaying. So what I want to say here, and this is kind of the trick to getting things to appear. I think I'll do it right here after the UL. I'm going to say, the menu container colon hover, and then the list is a child of the menu container, the unordered list. So I'm going to say, this says I want to select the unordered list, which is a child of the menu container, but only when I'm hovering over it. Okay, so when I'm hovering over the menu container, I want the unordered list to have the property, instead of display none, I want it to have the property of display block, which is what it had originally. Okay. And now, when I hover anywhere in the menu container, I should see that list. There it goes. Isn't that beautiful? And I mean, you can kind of tell there's a menu container there, but if we all of a sudden comment this out to get rid of it, okay, now it looks like, okay, wow, that's cool. I hover over the categories button and I see my categories. And when I hover over my individual categories, they are highlighted. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'll bring that border back just temporarily so I can talk about this. There's a lot of things you can do here. First, this is probably too wide, okay, for these words. There's too much space here. So, you know, you can play around with that. I can set the entire width of this menu container to like, I think 80M was one that I liked, but you can play around with it. It's got to be large enough so that your longest category, your longest menu item still appears, okay, in a single line. All right, but look at that now. And again, if you take the red border off, it looks much closer to the drop-down menu. Now, the only thing I realize here is I have this gap between the button and the list, and I don't really want that. So the first thing I'm going to try is I'm going to try to get rid of the margins on the button and the list. And so let me see what happens here. Let me see what happens. I hit margin 0 on the button. Okay, that doesn't really change anything. But it's really the interaction between the button and the list. So let me do a margin 0 on the list also. And look at that. The list is right up against the button. And that's exactly what I want. Okay. Now I'm going to temporarily get rid of this again just so you can see how it looks. Okay, now it's looking like a real nice hover drop-down menu. Now, you can play around with this. Like, one of the things you can do is you can make this menu container, give it a position of relative, and give the list a position of absolute, and then you can either move it to the left or move it to the right. Okay, let's just do that. It'll just take a minute here, but let's make the menu container have a position of relative, okay, and let's make the list, the unordered list, has display none, but let's make it have a position of absolute. Okay, now by default, if it has a position of absolute, it's going to be left justified anyway against its first relative ancestor, which is the menu container itself. But if I do this, right colon 0, that says I want it to align on the right with its first relative container, which is the menu container. So hopefully, actually, I don't know about the button, if that will, let's just see what it does. Okay, I'm going to save it. Okay, and interesting. So that did not do what I thought it would do with a position of absolute. It should, oh yeah, it does align. All right, I stand corrected. It does align here. So in order to make this look like it was aligned with the button, I'd probably have to give the button a position of absolute also, or I would just move the button to the right here. Let me try that. Let me just try moving the button to the right by doing a text align on the container. Text align end. Okay, there it goes. And now let's look what happens if I turn off this border. Oops. Now, if this was a categories menu on the right side of your website, that would look pretty darn good. Okay. So anyway, there's a bunch of stuff you can still do and a bunch of stuff you can still play around with, and I hope you will do that. But I think I'm going to call that a successful hover drop down for now.